Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tipped. Julian here for another waiver wire episode, guys. This is a good one for week 15 of the fantasy hockey season. Before we jump into the content today, guys, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. A lot of you guys that watch the video, like 50%, are still not subscribed. So definitely, that would be very appreciated if you do decide to subscribe to me today. And if you do want to take your support to the next level, you can definitely go down below in the description and check out the link to my Patreon. There's some nice perks there, like being able to DM with me one-on-one every time you have a fantasy hockey related question, and I'll answer you as quickly as I can. All right, enough with that, guys. Let's jump into the fantasy hockey schedule for week 15. And on Monday, January 15th, there were 10 games. Pretty busy Monday night. Tuesday, 8, Wednesday, 3, Thursday 10, Friday 4, Saturday 12, and Sunday 6. So the off nights are Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, not Monday as usual. Monday's actually a fairly busy night this week. Now the off nights are not as important as usual because they're kind of less busy than usual, but definitely go ahead and check if you actually have any room at all in your lineup on Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. If you don't have any room, obviously you're going to want to be adding guys who play on the off nights. And don't worry, I got plenty of guys for you in this video. All right, guys, so the team with the best schedule this week is the Detroit Red Wings, who play on Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, all 3 off nights this week, which is pretty huge because if you need players that don't play on those busy nights, Detroit is definitely the team you're going to be wanting to target this week. 2 off-night teams are Chicago, Florida, Minnesota, New Jersey, and New York Islanders. The days they play are all written on the screen there. And then there are 3 teams that really don't have the best schedule this week, and they are Columbus, Pittsburgh, and Winnipeg. Columbus playing only Monday, Friday, Pittsburgh playing Monday, Saturday, and Winnipeg playing Tuesday, Saturday. So out of the 3, Columbus does have the best schedule because at least one of those days is an off night. But other than that, guys, these teams, unfortunately, don't have the most games this week. In terms of forwards that you can consider adding, Ryan O'Reilly is a pretty good option. He's absolutely on fire right now on that line with Philip Forsberg and Gustav Nyquist. Obviously, they don't play on the off nights, but definitely guys who are producing right now. Nazem Kadri on the Calgary Flames is absolutely on fire right now as well. And as long as he's hot, guys, if you're in a deeper league, you can definitely consider adding him to your team. Lucas Raymond is my priority add this week for those off nights. He's playing on the top line and top power play and definitely can produce for you this week. Jake DeBrusk is playing on the second line in Boston with Coyle and Marchand. Definitely not a bad deployment, and he's finally producing, which is nice to see. As long as this dude's hot, definitely add him to your team because Jake DeBrusk, his upside's pretty high. Remember when Rickard Rakell sucked at the beginning of the season? Well, those days are behind him because he's producing super consistently, playing on the top line with Sidney Crosby and Jake Gensel, as well as the top power play in Pittsburgh. And even though Pittsburgh's power play is not very good, Rakell is finally producing, and it feels really, really good. You should be adding him now before too many people do. Gustav Nyquist, I kind of already talked about him when I talked about O'Reilly. He's insanely hot right now, like white hot. And as long as he's sizzling hot right now, you definitely need to add him onto your team because he's going to produce some points for you. Once he cools off, consider dropping him in shallower leagues. But he's definitely a great option right now. Cole Perfetti is super hot right now as well, playing on that second line in Winnipeg with Nemesnikov and Iafallo. Now, Perfetti's also getting top power play time, which is great. Unfortunately, the Jets only do play 2 games this week. But if you're worried about losing him on the waiver wire, you still can consider adding him this week to make sure that you get him on your team and not somebody else's. David Perron is also another good add for those off nights this week. Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, and he's playing top line and top power play, just like Lucas Raymond. Another very good add for the off nights this week. Artturi Lehkonen is coming back from injury very shortly. He is traveling with the team. It's going to be interesting what his deployment is because earlier in the season, he was on the top power play instead of Nichushkin. Now, Nichushkin has kind of proven that he needs to be on that top power play. It's super hot. Nichushkin's super hot, so it's going to be interesting. Will Lehkonen take Drouin's spot on the power play? I doubt that also, because Drouin is also producing a lot right now. So Lehkonen, while he probably moves into the top 6, he may no longer be getting top power play time. Let's wait and see, because Lehkonen's upside is still pretty high as long as he's playing with a lot of those big guys in Colorado. Dakota Joshua is playing on the third line in Vancouver, and he's 31% rostered now, which is crazy to say out loud, but that third line is playing fantastic right now with Connor Garland as well as Teddy Bluger. It's a good line, and as long as they're hot guys, definitely don't mind having those guys on your team. Jonathan Drouin now is up to 29% rostered, playing on the top line and top power play in Colorado. He's producing, so as long as he is, guys, Jonathan Drouin is definitely someone you should be adding to your team. JT Compher, someone who I also like for those off nights, playing on the second line with DeBrincat and Patrick Kane, as well as the top power play in Detroit. Definitely a great deployment for him. The only funny thing about JT Compher is he's actually been playing center the entire season, basically, and for some reason, Yahoo has not given him center eligibility. How bizarre. I think hopefully it'll be coming soon. But either way, center is the least valuable position, so it's not overly terrible, but still. Compher is a good ad this week. Morgan Geekie is someone who was an interesting ad. He was playing on the top line and top power play in Boston and was producing quite a bit. It seems like they may have dropped him back down to the third line. If that's the case, you can still ride him while he's hot, but he's probably going to become a drop really soon. Daniel Sprong is playing on the third line right now with Joe Veleno and Robbie Fabry. He's doing decently well, and for a week where the Detroit Red Wings have a really nice off-night schedule, he's definitely not a terrible streamer. Then we got Eric Haula and Michael McLeod. Haula's playing on the top line in New Jersey, which is pretty good, and McLeod is actually playing on the second line in New Jersey with Jesper Bratt and Tyler Toffoli. It seems like he's taken Jack Hughes' spot, which is pretty great, and Haula's playing with Heischer. So both guys are good ads for this week, where New Jersey plays on a couple of off nights. Dylan Guenther's on fire right now, playing only on the third line, but getting top power play deployment, and through 2 games with Arizona so far, has 3 points. Definitely someone to be adding right now if you're in a deep league, because his upside is pretty high. Teddy Bluger somehow is only 2% rostered in Vancouver, playing on that line with Dakota Joshua and Connor Garland. That line's super hot, and he's available right now in 98% of leagues. You want points? That's your guy. Joe Veleno of the Detroit Red Wings, only 1% rostered, is another decent ad for the off nights this week if you're in a super deep league. He plays at Sprong and with Fabry on the third line, and has been producing a little bit as of late, so definitely not a terrible ad. If you want a defenseman, Thomas Chabot's a pretty good ad if somehow he's available in your league. Getting top power play in Ottawa definitely should be rostered in way more than 67% of leagues. Thomas Harley and Brock Faber are both kind of guys that are kind of taking advantage of injuries right now. Harley is on the top power play with Heiskanen injured, and Brock Faber's on the top power play with Spurgeon injured. Both guys are producing really well right now and are the future of their respective teams. Super nice to be saying that right now, and are both priority ads. Then Jake Wallman of the Detroit Red Wings is also a guy who's looking pretty good in Detroit. And obviously, he has his highs and his lows, right? He's goes really hot, then he goes really cold. But Jake Wallman at 34% roster on a week where Detroit has a favorable schedule is definitely not a bad ad. Next is my MANSAPED must-add player of the video, Jamie Drysdale. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code word FANTASYTIPPED at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com with the code word FANTASYTIPPED. Say Happy New Year to your balls. Now, why is Jamie Drysdale my MANSAPED must-add player of the video? Well, Jamie Drysdale is proving that he's a pretty good player in Philadelphia. They're giving him top power play time, they're giving him lots of ice time, and so far, he's producing. He's a guy with so much potential, and he wants to prove it this year. If you're in a deeper league and he's still available, Drysdale should be a priority ad. Pavel Mintyukov is not a priority ad by any means, considering he just got injured. But with Drysdale gone in Anaheim, Mintyukov becomes their #1 power play guy when he's healthy. Obviously, even with the top power play, he hasn't produced a whole lot in the past few weeks, right? But we saw how good he could be earlier in the season, so maybe he comes back from injury and kind of has that spark again. That would be really nice to see, because his value would be pretty high if he did. Definitely doesn't hurt to stash him on an IR plus spot right now. Nick Seeler. I haven't included him in this list all year, but it's hard for me to ignore him at this point. He's maintained some amazing peripherals the entire season, basically. He's shooting, he's blocking, he's hitting. At this point, I have to show you guys that he's been pretty solid, and if you need peripherals, Sealer's an awesome ad. David Savard is the same kind of thing, but particularly if you're looking for blocks. In point leagues where block shots are worth a decent amount, like there's a lot of leagues where they're worth 1 whole point, David Savard is averaging like 4 to 5 blocks a night, and he's actually putting up some decent offensive numbers too, which probably won't continue, but as of right now, he's doing it. So Savard is definitely a good add in a deep league. Nate Schmidt of the Winnipeg Jets is 4% rostered. Unfortunately, the Jets only played twice this week, but the Jets are the hottest team in the NHL, and Nate Schmidt is taking advantage. He's scoring some points lately, and his peripherals aren't too bad either. So if you're in a super deep league, Schmidt is a decent add. And Adam Boquist of the Columbus Blue Jackets is now the top power play guy in Columbus. So they only played 2 games this week, so you don't have to necessarily add him this week. You can just wait and see how he does in those 2 games this week. But if he starts producing some points, he's probably going to stick on that top power play as long as Werenski is injured. Jumping into goalies, and last chance for Martin Jones, the Toronto Maple Leafs, 70% rostered, playing fantastic as the #1 goalie in Toronto. I never thought I'd say that, but Martin Jones is the real deal right now, and as long as he's hot, guys, definitely should be rostered. Peter Kochetkov of the Carolina Hurricanes is another guy who's playing basically all of the games for Carolina, playing pretty well too on a good team. Definitely a good add. Marc-Andre Fleury, as long as Gustafson's out, he's going to be the guy because they tried starting Wallstedt. He let in 7 goals, didn't play so well, so Fleury is their guy until Gustafson comes back. That might be soon though, so be prepared to drop Fleury once Gustafson does come back. Alex Lyon is the guy in Detroit as long as Husso's injured. They don't want to be starting Reimer, so Lyon's getting basically all the starts, which is awesome. Alex Nedeljkovic, the guy who's getting the majority of the start these days in Pittsburgh, which is nice to see. He's playing really, really well, and as long as he is, guys, he's going to be starting over Tristan Jarry for the majority of the time. He's a very good add, especially if you're a Jarry owner. He's kind of a must-add. Sam Montembeault is getting the majority of the games in Montreal at least every second game or so lately, and he's playing pretty well, so definitely not a terrible add. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, or as I like to call him, 6K, is getting every second start or so in Buffalo, and right now he's outplaying Levi, so he might start to get even more than that. Definitely not a terrible add at only 15% rostered. Nico Dawes is getting every second start for New Jersey. Hasn't played overly bad, hasn't been particularly amazing, but definitely a guy getting half the starts on a good team. It's a pretty good add right now at only 8% rostered. Dustal at 8% rostered as well. Gibson seemingly is sick. I don't know what he's not back yet, but whatever. Dustal's getting the starts, and even when Gibson does come back, Dustal has played well enough that he should get, maybe every second start or so. And finally, Danil Tarasov of the Columbus Blue Jackets is only 2% rostered, and they seem to be getting him all the starts right now in Columbus. He started 4 games straight. Obviously, his last start didn't go so well, but overall, he's not doing too badly, and he's available in 98% of leagues if you're in need of a starting goalie. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. If you enjoyed the content today, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Thanks so much, guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.